Thanks again for staying with Sunrise Live on it's Tuesday morning, the 11th of June. Now, Activate is a national NGO made up of a network of young leaders equipped to spearhead change for public good across the country. And the organization aims to build a critical mass of innovative trendsetters with the necessary skills to reshape South Africa into a winning society. And to tell us more about this organization, we're joined by Activator Mhlanganisi Mhlanganisi. And you at home are most welcome to give us a call. I did rehearse your name.
Yes.
And ask you for pronunciation, so my apologies for butchering right there.
No, it's no problem.
All right, let's get into Activate Change Drivers. What is it exactly and what does it aim to achieve?
Okay. So Activate Change Drivers, and I think I maybe need to give you a context with who activators are. So now activators are young people that are equipped to drive change in their different communities. Now these are young people that are interested in contributing positively towards the growth of their communities, contributing positively towards the broader scale of the country. So it's young activists that are equipped to drive change in the different sectors that they work in. So it's important to note that these are young people that have long been doing things in their communities. Some have been running projects, some have been running organizations long before the Activate program. The thing with young people, and the thing with young people operating in a scale where they want to contribute positively, in South Africa, for instance, is that these young people always reach some sort of glass ceiling. It's difficult for them to break through certain barriers, especially if they're working individually. Yeah. Now, the Activate network looks at equipping these young people and getting young people within different focus areas who are sort of looking towards a broader scale, a broader vision of growth of the country, for instance.
All right, I understand that this is an incubator, so there's mentorship and, of course, skilling young people to effectively be more efficient at what they do. You did say that they would have to have some record or success rate in what they're doing already. So with the criteria, would they have to submit a business plan? Would they have to have referrals in terms of the work that they've been doing?
Okay, so to get into the program, because there's a first-year residential training program, which is divided into 27 days, which is divided into a 9-day period, 3 9 periods. Now that training, or getting into that training program in itself, is an application process because the activator is fully funded, so they just have to apply and everything else is funded. So you do need to show a want to contribute. You do need to show some sort of willingness to work, and it's important to note that these are young people that are driving change in their communities. These are young people that are actually forwarding or doing work already, or that want to do work, or that want to get involved within their communities but don't know how. And that's the difficult thing in South Africa as well. We just don't know how to contribute. And having that network and having that basis of young people that you can bounce ideas off, having that basis of young people that you can share ideas with, is one that activators are looking to do, and is one that Activate is driving within those young people.
Yeah, but Mhlanganisi, also reaching the critical mass, because more often than not, you'd find that where opportunity is abound, things progress. In other words, where young people have access to technology, or they have mentors, and they have the opportunity to be in a different environment or workspace. We're talking about young people that would probably have the propensity to want to do things, as opposed to where there is distress in communities where there aren't any role models, when there isn't all that kind of support, where there's a stomach politics, where people really deal with bread and butter issues. Do you reach those?
Yes. Last year, which was the pilot year, which had the first crop of activators going through the initial training program, it was 186 activators in and around the country. Now, the training nodes are 3 nodes. It is the Gauteng node, which is the central, it is the Western Cape node, coastal, and the KZN node. Now, these nodes are where these young people converge when it is training. But when you speak of the net, and I think it's important to highlight that, that the young people most affected, or the young people who want to contribute, don't have the capacity, are the young people that live in Jankemdorp, where there are activators, by the way, are the young people that live in Port Shepstone, are the young people that live in rural Zululand, and that training has gone to them as well. And these are people that are part of that network, and we say that the value is actually created when those young people can cross-pollinate with someone who has access to certain resources, who has access to certain mentors, and who can share those mentors. And that's where the growth comes in. So this year, we have 600 activators around the country. That's in rural communities, that is in urban cities, and whatever the case may be. I myself come from Uppington in the Northern Cape.
Yeah.
So that's just the reach that the Activate network has, and we're looking at expanding that, and we're looking at about 5,000 young people in 5 years.
Yeah, but also the fact that we deal with young people as if they're one homogeneous cohort, and the fact that the needs are very different from one community to the other. More often than not, we read newspaper and it sounds like a crime report, where you hear about lack of security at schools, there's drugs and firearms and all sorts of things. So you're looking primarily more at leadership and young people that already have those kind of attributes.
Listen, Cindy, you see, it's important to note that each community has its specific challenges. How do we teach, or how do we equip, how do we capacitate an activator to think innovatively about the challenges that they face in their community? That is the critical question that we answer in itself. So speaking to the needs of that individual community is that individual's responsibility in the first instance.
Yeah.
How do you then support that young person to contribute positively to their community? How do you teach them to innovate? Because sometimes when you read those crime reports and when you read the newspapers in itself, there's always one solution or specific solution that's touted. If do this as a country, this is how we go, this is how it would go. Now there's a problem with that in the first instance, because we need to look at how do we innovate, how do we think differently, how do we think differently about age-old problems actually, and that is the critical question behind it. So these are young people that are driving those communities. How do we ask the questions that'll get you to think differently? So Cindy, have you thought about this? What are you missing? How do we drive this within another way? How do we mobilize along your communities in the first instance?
Yeah, I'm almost thinking that you want to recruit me, but I appreciate that you think I fit the criteria. Nomsa in Johannesburg, thanks for your call. Hello to you. Hi, Nomsa.
Hi, how are you?
Good, thank you. What's your question or comment?
I'd like to state that projects of this nature generally do not go to people who need them the most, and those people are in rural areas. How do you make sure to reach these people?
All right, thanks for that question. You kind of hit on it, but I think maybe we need case studies, we need contact numbers and an address, and what kind of projects are taking place across the country?
I'll use the specific case study of Jan Kempdorp, for instance. Thank you, Nomsa. I'll use the specific
Jan Kempdorp?
Jan Kempdorp is even in the North Cape, and I think it's about, yes, it is pretty far. I think it's about an hour out of Kimberley.
Okay.
So in Jan Kempdorp, for instance, there's a young lady there who applied through the Activate program. Now, the Activate, we've tried as much as possible to make the network accessible to everyone. So we have platforms on Facebook, we have platforms on Twitter, we have a Mobi site. And a Mobi site, for instance, is one where anyone can access in and around the country.
Yeah.
And those are the questions that we keep continuously asking ourselves as a network, is how do we access a lot of young people? So that's the question behind it. But she is running mental in her community of Jan Kempdorp whilst trying to study towards an education degree, also putting together a tutor network, running debating classes, for instance. And you would think that these things are minuscule, but when you look at a community like Jan Kempdorp, for instance, where no one really gets a chance to get out of the community in the first instance, that's a big job that's done by that lady in the first instance.
I'm sorry to interrupt you there. We just quickly have to go to social pages, and Ayanda standing by with your messages on Facebook. Over to you, Ayanda.
Thanks for that, Cindy. Now, on our Facebook page, we did ask our viewers at home how we can encourage active citizenship, particularly amongst the youth. And here, Sidisa says, look at what happens around the 67 Mandela campaigns. So I think if we do more community building projects, young people are bound to join in. It might be at a lesser rate at the beginning, but it's bound to grow as time progresses. I think we don't have enough NGOs in South Africa to take part in encouraging the youth of today. Dumisani Mkhize says emancipation is key. Dumi Waval says we need to bring more youth-related projects. Arthur Angry Bird says we need to encourage free education. Tapelo Mnguni says build more sports centers, promote sports like tennis, cricket, rugby in rural areas. And lastly here, Jerry Tatisa says the spirit of patriotism rather is the key, and youth mobilizations will do the trick. Those are some of our Facebook comments coming through. It's back to you in studio.
Thanks so much, Ayanda, and to you at home for sending your messages. Let's quickly take a caller. Alfred, you're calling us from Joburg. Hello to you. Hi.
Hello, Julia. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Yes. Like I'm staying in Palm Ridge, and I feel like we have a lot of youngsters in Palm Ridge, and then who are innovative, got those brilliant ideas, like to start the NGO. Now, we have a problem like have a mentor and sponsors and stuff like that.
Yeah. Okay, thanks so much, Alfred. But I think in a country where there is such a concerted effort and resources being put into youth empowerment, there's the CETAs, there's the learnerships, and you still need an obligation from young people themselves to want to be part of these. Thanks, Alfred.
Yes. You see, at the center of it all, Cindy, and this is something I think from the Facebook comments as well, a lot of young people are speaking about we need youth-related projects. Mm-hmm. When you say we need youth-related projects, who's driving those projects in the first instance? Who's driving those projects? We should be at the center of driving those projects in the first instance. And I think Alfred also mentions the question of the glass ceiling, for instance, where a lot of young people are doing work. A lot of young people want to contribute. They don't know how. They don't know who to refer to when you bump into a certain speed.
But you need the diligence as well. Once you start any meaningful change program, that you're willing to see it through till the end.
Yes, no, totally. And I think it's important to note that as well. That's why, for instance, activators are people that, and this is perhaps one criteria that I can mention as well, are people that have a deep passion for contributing. Because most of the time, those people that have a deep passion are the ones you call crazy when things don't go right. But when they start contributing positively, you'd see where that craziness comes from in the first instance. Yeah. However, I think the question of the glass ceiling is very important. It's difficult to do it alone, even though you are diligent, even though you're an individual that's strong, and that's where the network comes in. That's where the value of knowing Cindy comes in, and Cindy can give me an interview on some show and say, this is my project.
No,
exactly.
Totally. But let's just talk about the application. So if you come from Fontaine, or you come from Jan Piravit, and you want to apply, this all seems to be net-based. In other words, if you don't have access to a cell phone or internet, and that you might be left in.
There are paper-based applications as well that you can forward, and I think it's important to download them on the Mobi site. You see, Cindy, that's the thing with this country. We live in a country that in one area is concentrated urban, and then the other area is a very rural area, and it's difficult to get through to those young people. So there are paper-based applications for young people to physically write an application. We sit down, they are considered, each and every application is considered, so we sit down whether it is net-based, whether it is paper-based. But the important thing, and this is something we've learned throughout the time as well, is that young people in this country you get a hold of on a cell phone. So that's the nicest thing about South Africa, is that you can get young people on a by the Mobi site. For instance, it's something that's important, but it is important to note anyone in Doet, Geskietfontein and Donkeyfontein can actually, all those Fontaine as well. I hope there's nice water there, but those young people can get access through the paper-based application in itself.
Okay, so how many activators or how many young people are you assisting at the moment?
Yes, at the moment the network consists of 600 young people in and around the country, in the country actually, why am I saying around the country? But it consists of 600 people around the country. So it's the training nodes, as I've mentioned, is KZN, the Western Cape and Natal, where they come together during the training period. And then the second year of the program, then it's a process that's led by these young people. How do you support these projects, incubating these projects in itself?
So you'd have leadership workshops, summits, and
everything in the second year. And I think it's important to know these projects or these workshops or these seminars are driven by those young people.
Okay.
Because the philosophy is capacitate someone to drive something themselves at the end of the day. So if we were to fall away as Activate, which is a pretty small team, which is tasked with supporting and sort of helping with the training and innovation, if we were to fall away, there would still be about 5,000 activators in and around the country in the next 5 years that are driving change individually because they've been capacitated.
So, but if you were to say, just as we close, the one key to success, especially when it comes to leadership, what is it that you simply cannot do without as a leader?
That is a very difficult question, actually. You know, Cindy, I think importantly, and it's important to note, you need to listen. It's very difficult to lead when you haven't listened what people want. And I think that's where the disjuncture comes in. That's where the sort of legitimacy crisis comes in our country today, is that there are a lot of concerns that people are voicing. There are a lot of concerns that people are putting forward. It's just that sometimes our leadership isn't necessarily listening, and that's why they seem to be disconnected from the people in itself. So when you lead, I think it's important that you listen to people. I think it's important that you put yourself at the center with those people and contributing with them. So I think that's how you lead, by listening. Once you've listened to these people, you know which direction to take. You're just facilitating and not necessarily leading that process.
Yeah, and you can collectively work out a solution.
Totally.
But I really appreciate your time, and we wish you all the success. May you touch many more lives, and especially of those young people that are already currently doing something in their communities. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much.
We're speaking to Activator Mhlanganisi Madlongolwana, talking about Activate. It's an NGO that empowers young people to make a significant in their communities. And for more information, you can go to activateleadership.co.za, activateleadership.co.za. I understand